So me and Trish are living in Portland, Maine in this basement. And I have to tell you, the timing of this couldn't have been better, because this must have been, I want to say this was, oh yeah, I remember, because when we got kicked out of there, it was around April. Yeah, it was April, and it was like almost starting to get warm, and we were there for 4 months. So my timing and dates are off. Like, I don't remember exact dates and times, but I do remember when we got kicked out. I'm like, well, it's not that bad because it's starting to get warm. That's how I remember. So we were there for, I want to say, November, December, January, February, or December, January, February, March. So when we were there, the reason why it was such good timing was because in Portland, Maine, the winters are so cold, like brutally cold. Like, you step outside and your nostrils just freeze up. If you go anywhere, you gotta wear, I mean, at least me, I wore like 4 pairs of socks, shirt, another shirt, long sleeve, sweatshirt, jacket on top of that. Like, I was always a California person in Maine. I was never a Maine person in California. So we're living there. It's brutally cold, and it's so nice to just have a warm place to come back to. And I remember me and Trish, we would get in fights and we'd yell at each other, and the neighbors would bang and like respond to what we were fighting about. He'd bang, go leave her alone, or they'd bang and they'd say shut up. They had no idea that we were living illegally in the basement. Like, the neighbors thought we were just living in another apartment in the building. And so we would come and go, and the neighbors knew us. The neighbors just, they didn't know which apartment we lived in. They just knew that we lived there. So I could hang out on the porch, and everybody just, they knew that I lived there. They just didn't know that we lived in the basement. So it was pretty cool. Like, if I saw one of the neighbors, and, you know what I mean, they'd open up the door for me. Hey, it's me. Can you just open up the door? So that was pretty cool. We ended up, I got this cardboard, and I made a bathroom out of cardboard. So, like, I created, like, this little room, and then we had a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket, and I put, like, this plastic ring around it. So we had a portable toilet, and then we'd put sand in it, and then when it was full, we would bring it out and put it next to the dumpsters. So we had a working bathroom. We had the running water from the hot water heater. I brought a flat screen TV in there, and I went to the dollar store. They sell these like little converters where you plug in the cable on one side, you plug in the other person's cable, and then you can plug your cable out of the middle wire. So we had cable TV down there. What else do we have? Oh, I brought a dresser down there, so I had a dresser with my clothes in it. We had a radio, and the place was really nice. Like, Trish missed living at her dad's house, and I did too. Like, I missed having, you know, like the more comfortable spot, but for being homeless, this is about as good as it gets. The warmth was the best part. Just knowing that when we're out and about, just knowing that I had a place to go back to was just such a relief. And as time grew on, like, not many people knew about this spot. Ryan knew about it. My friend Nick knew about it. Me and Nick have been friends since we were little kids. And my friend Kabir knew about it. I was nervous about Kabir knowing about it, because Kabir doesn't listen. Like, if I say, Kabir, don't let anybody know, Kabir is just so selfish that he just doesn't care. Like, he'll just do what he wants, and he feels like he has full reign. Like, he'll give you a shot of dope, and then he'll bring somebody over, and he feels like he's allowed to bring somebody over now because he gave you a shot of dope. It's like, that's what, like, he lives by his own set of rules. I'll do another video on Kabir. Kabir is a good friend of mine. I love Kabir, but just when you're doing drugs, people become other people, just like me. Like, when I'm doing drugs, I'll rob and steal from my friends, for sure, no problem. Would I do that sober? Never. I would never do that in a million years. But when you're strung out, the only thing that matters when you're strung out is making sure that you're not sick. And in my case, it was making sure that I wasn't sick. Second was making sure that Trish wasn't sick. Yes, doing dope, and it's different. When you're doing dope in Maine, it's different than doing dope in California, okay? There's a huge difference, and I'm going to tell you why. Dope in Maine is so expensive, okay? The going rate when I was there 4 years ago, 5 years, when I was doing drugs, was $80 a half gram and $160 for a full gram. And if you knew somebody, oh, and the half grams were never an actual 0.5, and the full grams were never a 0.10. But if you had, like, let's say you had a connection, and there were people that had connections, you could get like mass dope, Massachusetts dope, and that would be like $50 a gram. But it was the quality was so bad, it's like, it's better to spend $80 for a better half gram than spend $50 for a full gram of garbage. So, but there were some people that had connections, you know, that were really hooked up. My connections would come and go. Like, I'd meet, because all the dealers were from New York, and they would come down. So I'd meet somebody, I'd have a good connection, and then he'd go back to New York, or he'd change his number, or he'd get busted, and I'd lose that, or I'd lose my phone. You know, just something would happen to. I was always gaining new connections and losing old connections. But yes, so we're living there, and you know, I don't want to say things are great, but the location. So it was right next to Preble Street Resource Center. So you can go there and get a fresh pair of socks. You can go there and shower, and they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The most amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Shout out to Preble Street Resource Center. It's closed down now, but it was a great place, man. I really liked it, and I enjoyed it. It was cool living right next door. Literally, like, you walk out the door, I just walk around the corner. It's right there. So, but as time goes by, Kabir starts knowing about it. Kabir starts telling people. There was another person. Who was this person? My memory is so faded. There was another person that used to come over. I forget his name. But somebody else used to come over. And as time grew, more people started coming over to the spot. So it started, like, before I used to be able to hide my drugs there, leave stuff there, and it was fine. And then it got to the point where I couldn't leave anything there, because you never know who was going to show up. Then this is what made us lose it. So there was a drunk driver, and the drunk driver had crashed into a pole, the drunk driver crashed into a utility box. And the utility box that he crashed into was the box that supplied power for like a 5-block radius. So everybody in that area, we all lost our power, including my apartment building that I'm living in the basement. So what happens is we lose power, and I'm down there, and I see the door open, and people are coming down, and I see people, they're at the breaker box, and I'm like, oh shoot, right? Like, they have to come down, because the breaker box is down there. And so I tell Trish, I'm like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. And they didn't see us. Well, the power kept going in and out, and we had left, so I wasn't sure exactly what happened, but somebody ended up coming down to like reset the breaker, and they ended up seeing our stuff there, our bed. We had a nice bed, and it was clear that people were living down there. So I come back, and I see maintenance workers, and they're downstairs, and I see like drills and tape measures and all this equipment, and I see that they're installing a lock on the door, the one that I put the credit card through. They're putting a lock on it, a padlock on the outside, not the inside, the outside. And so I dip, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're putting a lock on the door, like I'm screwed. All my stuff's down there. What they end up doing is they end up taking all my stuff, putting it in a trash bag, and then throwing it outside by the dumpster. So I end up getting all my clothes, but I knew at that point I wasn't going to be there. I wasn't going to be there any longer. So the padlock that they put there, if you take a screwdriver and unbolt the pad, you could take that off and I could go down there. And I was thinking about doing that. I'm like, you know, can I do that? And I'm like, well, at that point, if I do that and the police come, at that point, technically now I'm breaking and entering, because I'm breaking the lock and I'm, you know, like I'm, you know, that's bad. But if I'm just kind of opening up the door and being down there, it's just trespassing. So, oh, and I had a warrant at the time, and so I decided to not break the padlock, because I didn't want to get charged with breaking and entering. So that is when we, so that's when me and Trish lost the place. So I'm going to tell you what goes on from here. So I'm going to continue with the Lucky thing. So I go and I'm at a trap house and I see Lucky, and he's walking. He's like, he's got his arm like this, and he's like, you know, like, looks like he's got like a broken arm. He's got a bandage on his arm. And I said, Lucky, I said, what happened? He says, oh, he says, I have an abscess, and it's like eating into my skin. I said, oh man. And I said, because it was all bandaged up, I said, can I see it? And he's like, yeah. And so he takes the bandage off, and this is more than an abscess. It is rotting flesh, and the flesh has been like completely dissolved to where you see a bone in his arm. It's skin and then a nice bright white bone, and I'm just like, dude, that's the bone. I said, how did that happen? And I'm like, I said, Lucky, I said, that's from shooting up with the toilet water. He's like, no, that's not how it happened. I said, of course that's how it happened, man. I said, I told you by shooting up that toilet water, I told you that was bad. So he ended up going to the hospital, and they ended up getting him some antibiotics. He ended up getting better, but yeah, he ended up getting a wound because of that, really bad one. So me and Trish, we don't have a place to stay at this point. So I'm trying to think, where did we go? Left there. I don't remember exactly where we went, but I'll continue the story. So I in the other story of ruining my life, I told you about how I had gone to jail. I overdosed in the bathroom. They found Pop-Tarts in the bathroom, charged me with stealing Pop-Tarts for $1, gave them a fake name, went to jail. They ran my fingerprints, found out who I was, and then I got locked up. So anyways, when I was in prison, somebody had told me that Trish was living in a tent. So in Maine, it's okay to live in a tent in the summertime. Like during the winter, it's like you can't do it, it's too cold. But during the summertime, people tent out. The thing is with Trish is that Trish didn't take care of herself. She didn't drink water. She only drank soda. She never ate, and if she did eat, it was just like some candy. Trish was just so depressed. That's just the way she was, man. She just really depressed. And so after she died, I ended up talking to one of my friends, and I'm like, hey, you know, how did Trish die? I want to know what happened. And they said that somebody had some dope, whoever it was. I don't know if it was the guy she was with or whatever, but Trish got somebody's rinse. The rinse is the residue from when somebody does dope. So Trish ended up overdosing from somebody's rinse. That's how powerful the dope is, that you can die off of a rinse. I think a lot of it had to do with her not taking care of herself, because Trish did have a tolerance. But yeah, that's how she died. So I'm gonna jump into another story of how I overdosed. So I'm hanging out, and I'm by myself, and I have $40 on me, and I'm trying to go and see Debo, but Debo will not see anybody unless you have $80. That was his rule. He wouldn't go and serve you unless you had $80 for a full half gram. So I run into Becky, and Becky's like, "Do you have any dope?" I said, "No." I said, "But I got $40. She's like, "You got $40? She said, "I just did a date." She says, "I got $40. She's like, "Why don't we put our money together and we'll go and see Debo?" I was like, "That's perfect." I said, "Let's go do it for sure." So I gave her the money because she was a female, and so she'd always get extra. For some reason the Debo liked her. I guess she was pretty, but Debo would always give the females better deals. So gave her my 40. She comes out, she's got the bag, and we go and we split it. And she does her shot, I do my shot. It was very good dope. So we part ways, and this is where things get a little foggy. I remember doing the shot. I remember being with her. The next thing I knew, I woke up in Deering Oaks Park. It must have been maybe 2 hours later. Could have been 4 hours later. I don't remember. My timeline is foggy. But I wake up and it's raining out. And I wake up and I look around. I don't know where I am. And then as I start looking around, I realize that I'm in Deering Oaks. And I know immediately that I had overdosed. Because when you overdose, you wake up and you kind of you don't know where you're at. And so I knew that I must have overdosed because I'm laying in Deering Oaks. And I see I got my stuff around me. I got my needles and stuff. And I had a bag of dope. Or not a bag. I had a small, I had saved a little bit from Debo. Just enough to get well later on. But not a lot, just a small amount. But I knew nobody had been around me because they would have taken my dope. So I wake up and it's raining, and I start crying because I knew that I had overdosed. And I'm crying, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I overdosed again. This is crazy. And I'm confused because I don't know how I overdosed. Because I remember being with Becky, I remember doing the shot, but I don't remember overdosing. So I'm a little confused to where the overdose came. And so I'm crying, and just having a really bad night. And this was before, I think this is actually after Trish had died and after I'd gotten out, I think. Yeah. Like I said, my timelines are a little messed up. So I overdose, and so I go over to 7-Eleven, and I'm thirsty. I just want a drink, right? So I'm at 7-Eleven, and I'm still crying. I'm not feeling good. And this guy pulls up in his car to get gas, and I'm trying to remember if I asked him for help or if he asked me. It was one or the other. Either I asked him for help or he asked me. Oh, I think he asked me what was wrong. And I just said, can you help me? It's raining. He's like, get in the car. He's like, yeah, I'll help you. I was like, oh, thank you so much, right? So I get in his car, and I pass out again. I don't, because when you overdose, sometimes you'll wake up and then you'll just fall out again, depending on how potent the dope was. So I must have went back out, okay? Because I wake up, again, I don't know how long it's been, but I wake up and I'm with the guy who who had picked me up, and we're in this apartment, or not, it wasn't an apartment, yeah, an apartment complex parking lot, but we're parked towards the back. And I wake up, and I'm still a little confused, and the guy's got his phone out, right? And I look at him. Keep in mind, I don't know this guy. Never met him before, right? And I look, and I see him, and he's got his phone, and he's watching porn, right? And he's gay porn. He's watching gay porn. And I'm like, and I realize at this point, I'm like, okay, the dude's a weirdo. He picked me up because he's a weirdo. And so at this point, the dope is starting to wear off. It's been probably 4 or 5 hours at this point. The dope is starting to wear off. If you've ever done fentanyl, you know you got to keep doing it. So at this point, I'm starting to go into withdrawals. And I asked him, because I still had the little baggie of a little bit of dope that I had. But I couldn't find my needle. I didn't know where my needle was. And I asked him, I said, hey, I said, do you have a needle? And he's like, no. He's like, I just drank and I smoked weed. And he was smoking weed while he was watching the gay porn. And I said, all right, man. I said, you need to bring me down to Preble Street. I said, I need to get a needle. And so my plan was just, I was going to have him drop me off, and I was just going to get away from this guy. This guy, he was weirding me out. And he says, all right. He says, oh, and I asked him for some money. I asked him if he had any money he could help me out with. And he says, hey, he says, I'll give you $50 if we can mess around. And I said, no, dude. I said, go down to the Preble Street area, and you could find somebody that'll do that. I said, I don't do that. And I just wanted this guy to drop me off because I was just getting weirded out. But when you're doing dope and you're in that lifestyle, these are like normal things. Like weird people like this are just like a normal occurrence. So I wasn't I wasn't surprised that this was happening, right? Because I knew about these people. Like I knew about the weirdos because a lot of the girls were sex workers, and they would tell me stories about these weird guys that would pick them up downtown. So I knew about all these weirdos. So he brings me down. I go and get a needle, and that was it. And he drops me off right there. So that's the end of that story. So while we're at 21 minutes right now. So we're just gonna jump into another story, and this is shoot, where was I going with this? I overdosed another time. Sorry guys, I'm thinking for a second so I can jump into this next part. Oh my gosh, I just had it in my head, the story that I was going to tell you. I might have to cut it here, I forget.